Good afternoon. Up next in the Application Economy Theater is Alan Flower, the European CTO of HCL Technologies. HCL is an award-winning and gold sponsor of this year's CA World. Alan offers his unique perspective and experiences as the European CTO. He's known as an entrepreneur, innovator, and in his free time is also a renowned Parma ham manufacturer from the pigs that he raises. Please welcome to the stage Alan Flower.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you for 45 minutes this afternoon. And we're going to talk about the 21st century enterprise, and we'll describe that in detail as we go along. But what we're really going to talk about is the future of enterprise IT. And in particular, I think we need to talk about the future of the people who work in enterprise IT today, because our future looks a little bit interesting, to put it mildly. So we kind of live in interesting times, as I'm sure you've seen. We seem to have found ourselves operating in a hyper-competitive, global environment. We all work for businesses that seem to be under incredible pressure to thrive and grow and survive, going forwards. And I think it's been interesting looking at some of the other sessions that we've had here this week, because you can start to see a number of themes emerging, can't you? People talking about the need for innovation, people talking about disruption, people talking about the role of kind of startups and innovators, going forwards. But this is all hugely relevant to those of us who either work for large enterprises, maybe operating or creating those IT solutions that keep big business running, or indeed those of us that supply products and services to enterprises. It just seems that everything's changed. You not kind of pick up some of those themes. And I thought we'd start with I'm just trying to put things in context, trying to explain kind of what's going on in the world, how that might impact me as a technologist, and how most definitely that impacts everyone who works in enterprise IT. I put this slide in at the last minute because actually it's hugely relevant to what we want to talk about. This was a recent article in a UK publication, The Telegraph, you may be aware of it, but similar stories appeared earlier this month around the globe. And this particular article is referencing a recent research report that in this case came out of Bank of America and Merrill Lynch. And whilst I've kind of long ago given up listening to advice that bankers might want to give me, this is a particularly kind of relevant piece of research that really impacts all of us. What this article talks about in particular is the impact of robotics and automation on the world going forwards. I'm not here this afternoon to talk about robotics. That would be great, but we haven't got enough time. But we need to talk about some of the strong themes that are behind a number of things that we see. And this particular piece of research is really predicting some quite profound impacts on the world and the economy, going forwards. It talks about mass upheaval in a number of industries as we see the large-scale impact of not just robotics, but automation too. The reason why I wanted to show this particular article, and it's out there on the web, you can go and read it straight away, is that there's one particular quote from the report that I think underlines everything that we're seeing today. And it's right here at the top. The pace of disruptive technological innovation has gone from linear to parabolic. Okay? So what does that mean? Now, I've worked in this industry for many, many years, and the classic business model I had as a software producer was one of probably what we would call linear innovation. You got 2 software updates a year, quite frankly, and that was it. That was the world in which we lived. we now all live and operate in a global kind of environment which is so fast moving, so incredible in terms of the expectations from our customers, so incredible in terms of the potential that technology enables. And I think what I find quite incredible as I've kind of moved through this industry is, when I was a child, when I was a teenager, and people talked about the future. People may have talked about robotics when I was younger. It seemed kind of like dreamlike. It seemed unattainable. It was a description of the future that I didn't really expect to ever arrive. But where we are today is when I see articles like this, and this is just an example, we see these every single day, this is all totally believable. There's nothing here that I don't expect to become reality. And I think we now live in this world where anyone's dream can become a reality, and it's kind of expected. So we seem to be surrounded by this kind of overwhelming wall of innovation. This towering mountain of innovation seems to be hurtling towards us on a daily basis. Where this now gets interesting is we all work for companies, of course, whether we work for small operations or large enterprises. We're seeing this impact, the impact of disruptive innovation in every single industry on the planet. So whilst you might be, like me, a technologist and think that this is kind of interesting in someone else's problem, this now has a real impact on the businesses that we work for. Every single business on this planet is being disrupted, okay? It is so easy for any of us to leave here today and we can go and do a startup tomorrow, all right? There is a mountain of money to be invested in innovation. So it's so easy for people to compete. It's so easy for people to launch new products and services and seek to disrupt established players. If you get the opportunity to talk to a senior business leader of a large enterprise, the tone and content of the conversations we have has changed massively in the last 12 or 18 months as this kind of urgency around avoiding disruption or being proactive and being the disruptor of your industry, how to fend off startups and new competitors. These are really the things that keep business leaders awake. So what's this got to do with enterprise IT? The interesting kind of dynamic in our industry is that for many, many, many years, the relationship between the business and enterprise IT was quite an interesting one. And you could argue that the IT folks always came out on top. And the way that relationship worked is that the business would ask for something from the technology function, and if they were lucky, they might get it. They might get something completely different, and it would take a long time to appear, and it might not be relevant. But that was the way that IT worked, and the business kind of just accepted it. Where we are today is this overwhelming strategic urgency for businesses to be dynamic, to be disruptive, to be innovative, has completely changed the relationship between the business leaders and what we might regard as the enterprise IT function. And we've reached this point today where there is incredible tension in that relationship. So if you work in enterprise IT, it wouldn't surprise me if are you suffering from a decline in IT budget? Anyone here work in an environment where your budget is being reduced? Yeah? That is a sign of an IT function that's lost relevance with the business, because the amount of money being spent on technology is actually increasing massively every single year. But what we're starting to see is a relationship where the IT folks are kind of not part of the future, if that kind of makes sense. The business increasingly looks at us as maybe not being relevant going forwards. They say we're too slow. They say we're too expensive. They say that when we deliver stuff, it kind of wasn't really what they wanted, and why did it take so long anyway? And perhaps most damning of all, and I hear this every single week, the business leadership say, I don't think the IT folks understand my business, okay? And what we see in some businesses is a relationship that's become broken, where the traditional IT folks have got a future that's kind of based on maybe running the existing estate, when all of the mass investment which is going into innovation is being spent directly by the business on what the business wants, and that funding, that investment might not come anywhere near enterprise IT. Now, when you talk to IT leaders or people who work in IT, they say, well, the business just oversimplify everything. This stuff is really complicated. If this stuff should fail, the business will fail. They seem to think everything is simple when it's not, okay? Now, I can tell you from experience that every single time the IT guys lose that argument, okay? And you can see signs of that argument being lost. Has your CIO been replaced recently? When a CIO is replaced, they are always replaced with a business leader, never a technologist, okay? And there's this realization amongst IT leaders that as this world has changed and this kind of focus on, what I would call kind of business innovation, there is now a massive opportunity for IT leaders to take a step forward and become the business leaders of tomorrow. So this is what I'd like to explore briefly this afternoon. When we look at the things that kind of make for a successful business, today, we see a certain set of kind of attributes and capabilities emerge. And I think the most important thing that we all need to recognize is, regardless of what industry we work in, regardless of who we work for, every single business on this planet is a technology business, okay? Everyone recognizes now that we can't drive the business forward without technology. But the business's requirements have changed, substantially. The company expects the IT function to be relevant, to be dynamic, to be quick, to be agile. The business needs to see products and services enabled and launched quickly. The business expects to see constant reinvention. There's no way that we would ever get away with doing 1 or 2 significant releases of a software solution going forwards. We live in a world where customers expect hundreds of updates every single day, continuous innovation, continuous delivery and deployment. And what we're also seeing is a kind of realization amongst business leaders that they can't do it on their own. What's fundamental to all businesses now is really what I would call speed to value or speed to market, this agility, this responsiveness. And in this effort to be kind of more agile going forwards, we're starting to see ecosystems evolve around companies where they bring innovation into the business, they partner with others who can accelerate their business, going forwards. And perhaps, in particular, what I see is all of the investment, all of the innovation going forwards is largely around the user experience. Now, if you spend your time reading analyst reports, and you could be forgiven for not wanting to do that, okay? Analysts kind of talk about a bimodal IT capability. I don't know whether you're familiar with that term. Gartner will call it bimodal IT. Mode 1 IT is the classic IT function that maybe we've all come from. Mode 2 is all about the user experience, systems of engagement, really investing in technology to enrich and empower the relationship we have with our customers, going forwards. And the interesting thing, as companies become, a lot more focused on the user experience, is this realization that companies that get it right become incredibly valuable companies because customers stick with those suppliers who give them the better experience. And we're all quite, temperamental kind of individuals today. We'll switch allegiances on the flip of a coin, but we tend to have allegiance to those companies that give us the best experience. What this data shows is how, quite simply, when we look at where all the value has gone in this industry, it's those companies that really focus on user experience that come out on top. And I think the other stunning fact that's hidden in this slide that you can probably see, and it came out, I think, in a presentation yesterday. We used to think that when we worked for a large enterprise, life was kind of quite safe and predictable. You know, I had friends and colleagues who joined big companies and they expected to spend their entire working career working for a big established market-leading organization. But perhaps the most incredible thing I've noticed recently, and this chart backs it up, is these big established enterprises don't remain large and established for very long anymore, okay? If you roll back the clock about 50 or 60 years, the S&P, the Standard & Poor's, index, the average kind of tenure of a company on that index was roughly about 70 years, all right? So the top 500 companies didn't kind of change much, okay? Well, now that average tenure is currently at 15 years, and it's falling rapidly. So what this means is if you think you're working for a large established business, you simply can't predict that you're going to be one of those businesses for much longer because you can be disrupted. Young businesses will join this index and push the old guys out. We're seeing that almost on a weekly basis. This change is quite dramatic. And I spoke briefly as well about the power of the ecosystem. Business leaders now expect to have this enormous enriched ecosystem of partners, suppliers, innovators around them. This slide, unfortunately, refers to the two classic examples that everyone seems to use. So I don't even want to talk about them because there are thousands of other companies we could talk about. But one of the key themes I've noticed in this show is people are talking, for example, about API management. I mean, there are numerous sessions on API management. If you wondered why everyone's talking about API management as an example, it's because of this. How do I open up my systems so that my trading partners, my innovators, my ecosystem can leverage them? We also do API management, of course, to drive the creation of what we call these systems of engagement, those rich apps, for example, that drive the kind of relationship with the customer. So as a technologist, you should start to see certain themes emerging here, all right? The most important thing for all of us to decide is there's an inflection point coming now where we have to decide, are we going to go forwards into the business or are we going to stay where we are? And if we stay where we are, that classic IT estate is a rapidly shrinking box, okay? Budget cuts, lower investment as all the money moves this way into these sorts of things. All right, so there's a reason for all of the reinvention that you're seeing around our industry. Every single vendor is doing this to reflect the changes that we're seeing in our customers. And I think this slide here sums up, I think, the key challenges that we're seeing in the industry today. Everyone seems to like to talk about born digital companies, the Salesforces, the Ubers, the whatever of the world. And they're defined, as we've discussed, by the kind of the rich experience that they offer their users. They often bring us huge amounts of business innovation and really focus on that user experience. Now, in contrast, traditional enterprises, okay, and there are hundreds of thousands of traditional enterprises. Most of you probably work for one. That's not a bad thing. But traditional enterprises are kind of defined by turgidity. They don't move quickly, okay? They certainly cannot innovate quickly. They're pretty good orchestrators. They know how to marshal resources to get things done. It's just kind of unfortunate they don't get things done quickly enough, okay? So we see this trend emerging where established enterprises want to shift to the right, to become more like these kind of born digital competitors and to evolve the competencies that they need to be successful. So we talk about a 21st century enterprise. We talk about a beyond digital experience, which is this blue kind of icon here. So what we see when we talk to IT leaders is massive investment in changing enterprise IT to shift into this kind of 21st century entity. I think one of the things I find kind of most remarkable, I get to meet lots of CIOs, and when you get a bunch of CIOs in a room, and maybe some of you are CIOs, you almost certainly report to a CIO, When you get CIOs in a room and you have a private, delicate conversation about where they want to go, when you offer them a number of things to vote on, select the thing that's most important to you, okay? And that list might include choices like, I need to be the lowest cost operator of enterprise IT. We've all heard that story. Do you know the number one thing every CIO votes for? And I can predict, because it's happened so many times, 60% of CIOs all choose the same thing. And they all say, I'm going to be the person that drives business innovation in this organization. So we're starting to see a remodeling of enterprise IT into an innovation kind of function, a function that brings agility and indeed disruptive innovation to their organizations. So you've probably started to see some of the early signs of this transition in your organization. You probably want to make sure that you're on the right side of this movement, okay? You need to be part of the movement that is going to drive business innovation going forwards. And there are a certain number of characteristics that you need to look out for, things that we expect, things that we're seeing in successful businesses going forwards. So wherever you're making your personal bets, wherever your organization is investing in capabilities, you better make sure they align with the things that you see on this chart. The chart after this talks about what you might want to do as an individual to change to take advantage of this. So companies are becoming more experience-centric. We've already discussed about that. In particular, the enterprise IT capability in the business they work for only now needs to talk about business outcomes. You do not want to be the technical guy that goes to meet the main board of your company to propose a Windows 10 upgrade, okay? That is the last thing you want to be doing. You now need to talk only about business outcomes. What can you do with technology to drive the business forwards? We're also seeing an incredible focus on service quality. And we talk about the quality of services that we deploy to the end user, the consumer, the customer. And I think the last two are perhaps the most dramatic characteristics that we're starting to see evolve. Every business is only interested in becoming an agile business. And when I say agile, I'm not really talking about agile development, okay? Businesses are only now interested in time. How quickly can I launch new products and services, launch new businesses? So you have to think about your ability to support that agile business going forwards. And finally, of course, we need to enable this ecosystem around all of our organizations. On the right-hand side of this chart, I've put some of the key kind of technical themes that pair up to some of these characteristics. Clearly, companies are starting to invest in digitalization. They're buying the sorts of products and solutions that you may be seeing around the show today. They're building platforms that drive that end-to-end user experience. We're seeing investment in the Internet of Things for many, many reasons, but it helps us enrich certain kind of journeys through the value chains that a business should offer. Where we're seeing the most dramatic impact on enterprise IT is around what we would call next generation ITO and automation, okay? This one topic kind of explains and describes much of the pain and much of the opportunity that you might be seeing inside your organization today. Automation is totally unavoidable in our industry. So the future of enterprise IT will only be as a completely end-to-end automated utility of capabilities. Okay, automation is totally unavoidable. And as we evolve what we would call kind of next-gen ITO capabilities, we're investing in all of those technologies and capabilities that enable you to create a utility going forwards. And when we talk about a utility, fundamentally, there can be no difference between enterprise IT and any other utility, power, water, whatever. And we see signs now of quite significant investment in our customers where they're starting to create the future IT estate, which is going to become a completely hybrid, flexible, fully automated IT utility. So why do I want a fully automated, flexible IT utility? Because if I don't get to that point, I can't give the business the agility it expects. Now, we're dealing with customers now who genuinely expect to go from concept to production in less than a week. And you can't get there with a kind of classic legacy IT estate. You have to become a lot more flexible and fully automated. And the final thing on here, we talk about orchestration platforms. There are many, many companies on this planet, and you might not agree with some of these observations. There are plenty of companies on this planet who feel they no longer need enterprise IT at all, okay? I've met with CIOs who've joined businesses, quite recently, and they're dismantling enterprise IT. There are CIOs who have sold everything. There are companies that will never, ever buy another piece of hardware or software ever again. And I think the particularly scary thing is we're seeing some very, very, very large global enterprises make those kind of changes. So if you think about your future as an IT professional, you've got to be really cognizant of some of these key changes that we're seeing. So what's the future for us as individuals? Number one is you have to start behaving, talking as a business innovator. I love technology. I can talk about technology all day long, but I've learnt the only thing people want to listen to is a conversation about business innovation. So the key thing we're driving with our clients is we're enabling IT leaders to enter a space which is defined by IT-enabled business innovation. That's the only kind of innovation that's important going forwards. How can you support business innovation, business model innovation in particular? The challenging thing for many of us as technologists is we don't know much about the businesses that we work for. I know many IT leaders who don't even understand their strategy. They've never needed to, but you need to going forwards. As we get an increase in focus on the user experience and the end-to-end journey that a customer makes as they engage with us, as solution designers now, we need to sort of develop new skills. You need to think about the human experience. As we increasingly see companies invest in wearables, for example, you need to think about how people think, move, and behave. Everyone has to be design-led. Everyone has to be design-led. Many IT functions, you've probably seen this in your own company, talk about becoming competitive with the external services that their business can consume. And it's very, very common to find a business leader say, I just don't like the experience I get from enterprise IT. Their stuff doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. The business now they look and act like, they behave and act like consumers. They expect that consumer level experience even from corporate systems. And again, don't forget, we've got to think about the complete end-to-end journey that a user of a solution has. So these are skills that you might often find in a digital startup, for example. If you've worked for a startup or you've helped create one, these are the sorts of people they recruit, okay? We now need these people inside enterprises because you won't be competitive unless you can start to kind of think and behave like an agile startup, but of course carry on continuing to deliver like a lean enterprise. If we now explore some of the key kind of attributes that enterprise IT is investing in, the things that we see emerging, the things that customers are asking us for, they're kind of summarized in this word cloud on the screen. I'm not going to go through all the detail, but look, think about what your IT estate looks like today. It's probably massively oriented towards running those kind of systems of record, that mode 1 IT capability. There's a whole bunch of new stuff that you're going to have to put in place if you're to remain relevant to your business and be recognized as the entity or the individual that can drive business innovation going forwards. So just as an example, you better be investing in automation. If you can't deploy complete solution stacks in minutes, you've got a problem. No one's going to wait days for anything. No one's going to wait months. That's just not going to happen at all. So you need this ability to be hugely responsive being able to deploy and flex at will. You need to develop the ability to act as a kind of service broker, be able to take in external innovations and services from others and kind of orchestrate them into a kind of a rich solution that includes, the best of your internal innovation, but also the best of breed services that you bring in from others. You have to invest in all of those capabilities around the United experience. But there are a couple of key things in particular I ought to point out because we see this moving really, really quickly. When we talk about the enterprise of the future, you wouldn't believe, or maybe you work for one, you wouldn't believe the number of companies that are making some quite dramatic decisions about their platforming going forwards. Those companies that decide that they're never going to buy hardware or software ever again are cloud-first businesses. It's very, very common to find an enterprise now that will say, if the business wants a new solution, it can only come from the cloud. We will no longer invest at all in our legacy estate. So that movement to cloud first is accelerating, I think far quicker than anyone expected. This movement towards SaaS-based services, again, is very, very dramatic. So as you start to think about how you're going to deploy these capabilities, you now need to be thinking of a kind of a cloud-first, cloud-native innovator going forwards. What I'm going to invite you to do, because I'm not here to pitch our products, is what we've been investing in as a company, and really in response to all the things that our customers are saying to us, are all of these capabilities. What HCL has to do with our customers is enable that IT leadership to create this automated, flexible utility going forwards, to establish those platforms on which these new kind of rich customer experiences will be based in the future. I've picked out here a number of things that I'm expecting you are currently doing. If you're not currently doing all of the things on this slide, you should be concerned. You should be really concerned. So some of the things that we're seeing as people move to this kind of enterprise of the future, this kind of monolithic infrastructure that many companies have today is being stabilized. It's getting no investment going forwards. All of the future investment is in a cloud-native but software-defined infrastructure. And when we talk about software-defined infrastructure, we need the ability to reconfigure our environments in real time. We need the ability to scale volume up and down in real time. The business, if it sees that we can't do that, the business will go to an external provider in an instant. In an instant. We see a change in focus away from technology to services. We think about the services that we're creating and the experiences that they drive with the end user. We're no longer writing code. We're creating services, complete end-to-end services, kind of atomic microservices in some cases, which kind of encapsulate an entire business process. Everyone should be investing in the user experience. And here's a particular change that I see all the time. The focus of many people in enterprise IT today is wrong, okay? We focus on the cost of running the IT estate. And that conversation typically is dominated by, can we do it cheaper? Can we do it cheaper? We're expecting it to be cheaper. When you talk to business leaders, can I tell you one thing? The one thing they never ask about is the cost. They think about the cost of not doing something, and they think about the opportunity of investing in something. So when you talk to a business leader, they want to talk about the outcomes that you enable. So if I invest in this new solution that you technology guys want to build, what would it do for the business? The discussion around cost actually is it's kind of going away in many cases. If you would rather operate in an environment where people don't keep beating you up about doing things cheaply, you can see that by shifting forwards as the innovator, you're working in this far richer environment where there's ready investment for these new disruptive, innovative solutions. And then finally, when we talk about running IT in future, a lot of our focus today is around keeping technology running, okay? We used to see this in things like RFPs. People would write RFPs that would say, these are the SLAs that you have to sign up to. What I've started to see are completely new contracts where the business is now driving the entire negotiation and people expect you to contract to business outcomes, not technology outcomes. So the days of the classic SLA are somewhat numbered because as a technology provider, we are, you are too, you're now dealing with business consumers who want to know what value you can bring to the business. I'm going to pay you based on the number of widgets that my factory produces. I'm going to pay you based on my net profitability. And again, I'm not going to make long-term commitments. I'm going to pay for what I consume. I'm going to pay for the value that you technical guys bring to the business. And when I talked earlier about enterprise IT needing to become a utility, there's a lot of opportunity behind this. This one diagram is kind of quite interesting. It talks about those kind of classical three types of technology: IT, business technology, operational technology. But you really need to be focused over here on the right-hand side of this slide. This is where the business lives, okay? The relationship between the business and IT has changed and will change again very, very rapidly. The business expects to consume solutions and services. It does not expect to consume technology, okay? When we think about our role as technologists, I have to build an IT estate with some of these capabilities here. It has to be fully automated. It has to be agile, clearly. But we expose going forwards services, business services. Okay, the business doesn't want to consume infrastructure. Many businesses never want to see infrastructure ever again. So what we're seeing now is IT leaderships establish a catalogue of business services with a marketplace where the business can go and click and consume services from a catalogue, and those services are deployed in minutes, not months. So we have to invest in automation. We have to create productized services, okay? Things that are standardized that we can roll out to the business pretty much in real time. If I'm working with business technology and I'm creating those experiences, clearly I'm now focused totally on that really rich, engaging customer experience. If I'm running the IT estate, if I'm operating if I'm working with operational technology, things are getting really interesting, okay? Because we talk now about a business environment which is supported by this really flexible, agile IT estate that never stops. It flexes at will, it never stops, it brings value as quickly as it possibly can. We're moving to a model where, along with automation, we're building AI and intelligence into this IT estate. Users, for example, generally don't like dealing with service desks. They really don't like that. We've all experienced that. We're inventing the service desk out of existence going forwards. We're investing, for example, in cognitive analytics. We will spot problems before the end user does. We will fix problems before they become apparent to the end user. So we kind of support this automated estate with investments in huge amounts of technology. One thing of note, for example, and we had a great day yesterday, by the way. We were, really fortunately, we were delighted. We won 2 major awards from CA here at the show yesterday. And those awards were really a recognition of the investment that HCL is making in the innovation of this entire kind of IT estate going forwards. So things that we're doing right now, we're investing in machine learning. You should be doing the same. We're using machine learning to completely automate the resolution of incidents in an IT estate. We're doing root cause analysis we're fixing things before they become a major problem. So I think we're world leaders in the use of machine learning inside an IT estate. We've brought who I think is the world leader in machine learning technology with us this week. If you're interested in machine learning and how it will enable you to kind of evolve some of these capabilities, you ought to come and have a talk to us. But most importantly, as you look at this slide, your future as a technologist or a business leader or an innovator going forwards will exist somewhere on this slide, okay? I happen to know who is going to be the most powerful person going forwards. I wonder whether you think who's going to hold all the power. I'll help you out. The one place you want to be as an IT leader going forwards is once you've enabled this automated estate, the person who controls orchestration is going to control everything. Orchestration is where we take that rich selection of services, we wire them together into value-producing business solutions for our business. We might expose them through a catalog or an online marketplace. That is really the sweet spot for IT leaders going forwards. As you become the business innovator, you also want to be the orchestrator, the person that runs this beautifully sophisticated IT estate will be dominated by the person who undertakes that orchestration role. In the few minutes that we've got left, I'm just going to touch on two things in particular. Of the many attributes that we need to invest in as IT leaders going forwards, I think what should be really obvious from a number of the presentations you've had here this week is the importance of a DevOps culture. Right? And you can't buy DevOps, by the way. It's a culture. It evolves, okay? But DevOps on its own is only going to be partially successful unless it's combined with this kind of automated, orchestrated IT estate. I want the ability to flex up and down. I want the ability to launch new solutions really rapidly. I can't do that with DevOps on its own. So what we're going to talk about this week on the HCL stand is something new from HCL called Dry Ice. Dry Ice is a complete foundation that allows you to create this IT utility going forwards. It's where you'll find our investments in cognitive analytics, machine learning, for example. So we'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you about Dry Ice. The other really significant thing that people are investing in is the ability to be that service orchestrator and broker going forwards. Every large enterprise that I've engaged with for the last 2 years wants this and wants it quickly. Because the future for us as IT leaders is to expose consumable solutions and services that the business can get immediately. The business, as I've said so many times, will not wait for anything going forwards. You have to expose a consumer-grade experience to your business so that they can come along and consume your services. Whether those services remain infrastructure, SaaS, in-house cloud-native solutions, whatever, they're going to have to be exposed through a kind of a consumer-grade experience. So we're investing in something called Service Exchange, which in one offering enables an IT leader to put in place that ability to now expose to their business these richer services, tie them together, integrate them, act as a broker of both internal and external innovation going forwards. And the final thing I'll mention to you, and this should be really obvious, most people in IT talk about the generations of IT, Gen 1, Gen 2, some people think we're at Gen 2.5. HCL is a Generation 3 IT provider. So what's distinguishing about a Generation 3 provider? We enable business orchestration. We enable the exposure of marketplaces of services going forwards. We enable IT to become a contributor to the profit and loss of the organization. And in particular, and this just pairs up with what our customers are telling us, we enable IT leaders to become the business leaders and innovators going forwards. That's what it means to be a Generation 3 IT provider. And finally, as a kind of reward for your investment in your time today, we'd like to offer you a couple of things. We'd love to see you at the HCL stand, okay? We are an award-winning innovator around CA products and services. We are the only IT services provider that can enable this Gen 3 model today. We'd love to talk to you about it on the HCL stand. We'd also ask you to get in contact with us. And what I'd really like you to do, if you haven't done it already, is give us your business card. We promise we'll be good with it. And if you'd like to come to us to the HCL stand, we're going to do 2 extra things. I'm desperate to give this Bluetooth speaker to someone because I don't want to carry it home again, okay? I'm told it's good and expensive. And we've also got a giveaway of an iPad over on the HCL stand as well. I'm sure you want to come and talk to us about how we can make you successful going forwards, but if you need a slight incentive, please leave your business card with us, come to the HCL stand, and we'd love to share one of these gifts with you as well. Thanks very much.